Oh boy. Oh boy, this is absolutely not the topic that I thought we would be talking about today. And I know I say that about a lot of things, but I think it's pretty vindicated here, because today, what we're doing is talking about a pretty particular set of odds. Yeah, that's right. This has got to be a joke. The universe hates my guts, reminding me you and I don't spell us. Today we're talking about the odds of Sidney Crosby's next NHL team. Because the folks over on... This is not sponsored, by the way. The folks over on betonline.ag published themselves the official odds as to how things could go. Here it is. With a deadline of next week, May 23rd, 2025... we have ourselves the odds for Sidney Crosby's next NHL team. The highest likelihood team to get Sidney Crosby next is the Montreal Canadiens at a plus 300, followed by the Colorado Avalanche and the Vegas Golden Knights at 400 and 550 respectively. The Red Wings, for some reason, are in the top 5 of Crosby destinations. They're 4th with a plus 750 rating. Not to mention Winnipeg and Dallas with a plus 800 and a plus 900. You then have the rest of the list. In order, it goes Florida, Tampa, New York, the Rangers, Toronto, Edmonton, the LA Kings, the Boston Bruins, San Jose Sharks, St. Louis Blues, Canucks, Blackhawks, Flames, Wild, Senators, Ducks, Hurricanes, Devils, Isles, Preds, Caps, Kraken, Sabres, Blue Jackets, Flyers, and the Utah Mammoth. Which, it's kind of funny. They have a plus 10,000 odds. I don't think Crosby is going to go there anytime soon, but I do think that's the first time on this YouTube channel's history we have referred to the team in Utah as the Utah Mammoth officially. Like, I know we tossed that name around in the hypothetical Utah naming videos that we made before the hockey club's team name was officially revealed as Utah Hockey Club, but they're the Utah Mammoth now, and I think that's the first time we ever used that phrase in a sentence. Yeah, kind of fun trivia fact for you here. But putting aside the fact that they literally just put out all the other NHL teams and the odds that Crosby goes over there, I did want to talk about the top 5. Montreal, Colorado, Vegas, Detroit, and Winnipeg. I guess you can exclude Winnipeg because technically the highest odds team would be Pittsburgh, but they're not listed on this list, of course. We gotta add that disclaimer too. It's always gonna be present in this kind of discussion, but just because a team is listed on whatever odds are posted about online does not mean squat. Literally, the folks that came up with this number, they're employees for Bet Online that are trying to get you to bet and lose your money. Because, look, let's face it, the odds that Sidney Crosby firstly leaves the Pittsburgh Penguins, it's low. And secondly, you have the chance to choose all the other NHL teams. They're hoping that some fool is going to go out there and say, yeah, Crosby's going to come over to the Carolina Hurricanes, and they place a $2 bet. Sure, that $2 is gone, but that's $2 extra for the folks that are running this website. So, even though there is a potential payout of, what's a plus 4,000 odds $2 bet going to get you, like $80 or something, even though there's a chance of you doing that, it's probably not going to happen. And if anybody does believe that Crosby will go to Carolina, for example, it's like, okay, I'll bet a $20 bet, because if it does hit, then I'll get $800. If it doesn't, then it's just $20. You know, it's gambling. Know your limit, play within it. But let's talk about the teams that are at the top here. Montreal, listed here, number 1, plus 300. Okay, I get it. They're there because everybody's talking about Sidney Crosby going to the gosh darn Canadiens. Everybody has heard the angle and the argument. Everybody has discussed it. Everybody has gone over how if Crosby were to leave, Montreal is probably the likely destination, but the likelihood of him leaving is very low to begin with, so we can't really build off of that idea. But Sid the Kid, playing behind Nick Suzuki as a second-line center, oh, he'd be the best second-line center in the league. Who knows if he'd be able to get 82 points again and have another point-per-game year, but Sid the Kid would certainly bring an electricity to the Bell Center that maybe we hadn't seen since, Demidov? Yeah, that's a bad example because everybody knows that situation was so recent. Montreal's number 1, though. No surprise here. We don't need to talk about them too much more. Same could be said about the Colorado Avalanche. In fact, with both Sid and Mac Daddy tearing it up for Team Canada at the World Championships for the first time in 8 years, I think, there is already a good sense of camaraderie there, and everybody knows that the two Cole Harbour, Nova Scotia boys would love to play together if they ever had that chance to do so on an NHL team. It's just, would Sidney Crosby want to go to Colorado over Montreal? It's tight, which is why the betting odds people even said that it was tight here when depicted on their graph. But you go over to some of the other teams talked about here, you have yourselves the Vegas Golden Knights as the next team up. Could Crosby go to Vegas? Is that something that we think is a possibility here? I mean, having Crosby and Stone playing together on the same line would be absolutely terrifying. You wouldn't be able to get anything past those two. And then on the power play, Crosby and Eichel, imagine those two guys and their work ethic working hand in hand to will results. Maybe the Oilers would not have easily won had Crosby been on the gosh darn Golden Knights. I do find it interesting, though, how they are listed here as the third most likely team over some of these other top playoff contenders like Winnipeg and Dallas. I don't really see why Vegas would be put higher than those other two teams. Maybe it's just an atmospheric thing with the city itself and how Crosby would want to potentially go to Vegas over Winnipeg. Not necessarily in terms of the team, but in terms of the quality of life in those areas. Who knows? But moving past that, I wanted to talk about the Detroit Red Wings because, of course, you know, my third favorite team, they're right in here too. Top 4 Crosby odds-related team. I think there has been enough buzz about the team needing a second-line center that the Sidney Crosby angle is not totally out to lunch. I mean, it is because it's like, yeah, Crosby's not going to Detroit. But at the same time, it's like, okay, if they need a center, Crosby's the main guy everybody's talking about. So if you wanted to bet some money on that, I don't really think that the Red Wings getting a plus 750 is enough, to be honest. I do think it's a lot more unlikely than that. But 750 odds for Detroit, they're placed amongst one of the highest teams to getting Sid the Kid in their sweepstakes. So you can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below if you agree or disagree with that. Having Crosby play behind a guy like Dylan Larkin would be so spectacular. Just talk about the star power and the status of what that could bring for the Red Wings in their system and how that would affect the long-term outlook. And I even say long-term outlook, not necessarily because Sidney Crosby is young. Oh, he's definitely not. But just thinking about what kind of impact getting this kind of a player on that team will have with the Detroit Red Wings. You can't underestimate that. Sidney Crosby is that guy. We know he is that good. And whether or not he decides that Detroit is his next destination is irrelevant. Whichever team he goes to, he is going to make a significant impact on. Which I guess you could say begs the question as to whether or not Detroit would be a fit, because it's like, hey, if they need a guy, they absolutely need somebody to help them get over the hump. We spoke earlier in the week about how they need to stop bargain bin hunting. Well, guess what? Sidney Crosby ain't a bargain bin pickup. He'll be a legit elite top of the crop type of guy, even though he is 38 years old. So with that in mind, I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about all of this Sidney Crosby odds talk going on here. And what are your opinions about the Red Wings being listed as one of the top destinations? The Canadiens, of course, leading the way. The Winnipeg Jets and Golden Knights also being in there too. What are your thoughts about all of these teams and the potential of them getting Sid the Kid in some sort of a transaction here? You can bet some money on it, and you can potentially win if you really wanted to do that. I won't encourage it, but you can do whatever it is that you please with your hard-earned cash. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you've enjoyed this video. And bye.